to the Green Dispensary Marketing GDM Podcast. Always trying to have the best entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry. And today I'm super excited because we have one of the pioneers in AI. You know, this is one of the technologies that's really starting to take over not just cannabis, but really the whole world, we might say. And so really it's going to, one way or another, find its way into cannabis and specifically cannabis marketing. And so I'm really excited to talk with this person. This is Wyatt Hahn. He's the co-founder of Pluggi, and they have this really cool dispensary AI agent, AI chatbot, you might call it. And he's here to talk about his product, what it does, how it's going to change the game for dispensaries, and some of the reasons behind why you should check it out. How are you doing today, Wyatt?
Good, man. Thank you for having me, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, super excited to have you here. See, this is we're 2025. AI is one of the technologies that's really starting to take off. And so really super excited to talk to people like you that are really just starting to, get skin in the game with this AI and really learn how to work it and specifically make products for it. But before we get started, I'm really interested to hear more about you, Wyatt. Can you tell me a little about your personal journey and how you came to be here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually start the story back when I was 5 years old. Actually, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, and growing up with Tourette syndrome, it's a series of physical and verbal tics that you have no real control over that can make life quite a bit harder than if you didn't have those tics. So I grew up with that, and it just taught me to be very resilient and adaptable. And then when I was around 16, 17, I grew up in a town called Grass Valley, California, believe it or not. And they were a big cannabis growing town before it was legal. So, I had very early young exposure to cannabis as a plant and, started consuming it recreationally as you do when you're a teenager. And then slowly began to realize that whenever I would consume it, the tics from my Tourette syndrome would go away pretty much completely. And at this point in time, there's no pharmaceutical treatment for Tourette syndrome at all. So finding this source of reprieve was incredible for me. And so going into college, 18 years old, I got my medical card, and it just completely turned around my quality of life. I actually founded a small startup in college when I was 18 years old called UPool, which was a university ride-sharing application. Ultimately grew that to 3,000 users across 3 California universities. And in that process, just really discovered how much I love the process of building products and finding value props for specific customer bases and really matching that up with the people that benefit from it most. Ultimately, I had to wind down that project as I graduated college, needed to get a job, start making money. I worked for a couple of SaaS startups in the advertising space, and then ended up at a company called iRate, which I think they recently rebranded, but they're essentially a Google review generation company that when I joined up with them, they were working with over 1,000 dispensaries and made up 50% of their customer base. So once I worked with them, I think I only worked with them for like 6 months. But in that time, I got to see what it looked like selling into and marketing to dispensary operators. And from there, saw an opportunity to sort of merge my passions for cannabis from my personal life and building products and selling products, it from my professional life that I developed, and just took the chance and pulled the trigger, founded Pluggi in March of 2022, and just been growing the last 3 years.
Wow, a really powerful story. Thank you for sharing that. I've never actually heard that cannabis is some sort of answer for Tourette's. Really, really interesting to hear that it had such great impacts on your life. Super excited for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because it'd just be terrible to live with just a terrible tic your whole life. But if you can figure out how to fix it, and I had no idea cannabis actually helped. That's just incredible. Super big congrats.
It's truly amazing. I mean, for something where there's pretty much no other option, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about this. So I was going to ask you a little bit more about your background with marketing. It seems like you're kind of dipping your toes in there a little bit. So let's jump right over to the product here. And so I'm curious, why did we go down the route of an AI chatbot? What was the initial thinking there?
Yeah, totally. So, I had saw a product called Wendy when I was working at iRate, and it was essentially an AI chatbot for like doctors' offices. I think it was specifically rehab facilities, and this was a few years ago, so I don't remember, but it was like AI intake for rehab facilities taking on new patients. And, I had been discussing problems with dispensary operators working at iRate for a few months, and realized that cart abandonment was a massive issue for dispensaries, especially with online shoppers. People would start generating carts and then wouldn't complete their transactions. And this was primarily due to the fact that they didn't really know what they were looking for. A lot of new cannabis consumers have no idea where to even get started. And when you're shopping online, you don't have access to a budtender who can assess your needs and preferences as an individual and then make recommendations based on those needs and preferences. So what I did was I partnered with a development agency that specialized in chatbots and natural language processing, and built a chatbot that was specifically catered to generating cannabis recommendations. So we figured if it had one clear goal, then it could do it very efficiently, very effectively, and we could provide a lot of value very affordably to the dispensary market. So that's sort of what led me to do a chatbot. And I'm very glad I did, because about a year after we launched our chatbot, ChatGPT 3.5 became accessible to the public. We were able to roll some of those features into our product stack and make it significantly more valuable than it was when it was just product recommendations. And then we expanded into customer support capabilities as well.
Yeah, and as you know, with AI kind of advancing recently, if we were talking about GPT 3.0, the text quality was a lot lower than it is these days. We're at 4.5 these days, GPT 4.5. And so I'm kind of curious, when you're just getting started off, I remember back, what was this, 2021 we're talking about here, we're at 3.5. When I was doing a lot of freelance writing at the time, and I was looking at AI, but I was still not convinced that this was going to be it. This wasn't going to be what was going to take me out. But once we got to like 4.0, 4.5, I was like, oh shit, writing's on the wall. And so I'm kind of curious, how did you present this as valuable in 2021 when we were looking at AI text that, at least in my mind, was just super trash? What was your thought process then?
Yeah, so at that point in time, we didn't reference GPT at all. We barely referenced AI aside from in our slogan. Really, it was all about showing that we had an effective integration with the dispensaries' POS and e-commerce menus, so that we could pull COA data and then relate that data back to the preferences set by the customer. So in the beginning, we weren't leaning very heavily on AI at all as part of our value proposition. It was more about just being able to generate effective product recommendations for your customers. And then from there, as AI became more accepted and valued in the market, we started layering in ChatGPT powered features.
Huh, interesting stuff. Let's break down. I'm interested to kind of go under the hood as much as we can here. Can you break down a little bit how it works? And so let's imagine customer visits a dispensary website. I would imagine it's like a little button in the bottom right, or correct me if I'm wrong here, and then they click, and then it's like, hey, I have, for example, I have scoliosis. How does this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually can't make recommendations based on like medical symptom precedent.
Okay.
So just due to regulatory reasons, we can only make recommendations based on like desired effects. How do you want to feel? How do you want it to taste? What product types are you looking for? So you're exactly right. It is just a little chatbot that goes in the bottom right hand or bottom left hand corner of a dispensary website, or if they have multiple locations, they can put it on the individual menu pages. It comes up with a little pop-up message that just says, hey, I'm your AI bud or your dispensary AI agent. Would you like some recommendations? And then you could click on that. It pops up with a very small chatbot. It starts out with 3 button-based questions that are, what product types are you looking for, which pans out to be flower, edibles, you know, pre-rolls, concentrates, vapes. The second question being, what flavors or aroma profiles are you looking for? So we have a array of different flavors and aroma profiles that you can find in cannabis products. And we take the responses to that question and relate it back to the terpene data within the COAs from their POS, so that we're getting batch level relevant data as to what aroma profiles those products would have from their terpene content. And then the last question we asked is the desired effects that a customer would want from consuming this product. So, you know, that tends to be like creative, relaxed, energetic, focused, sleepy, things of that nature. And then we're pulling from the strain types, the terpene profiles, and keywords in the product descriptions to then pull relevant products to those desired effects. From there, we're stack ranking all the products that match the preferences set by the customer, and then pulling the top 3 products that fit those specifications.
Yeah, it seems pretty comprehensive if you were to ask me. I'm not an expert on what a bud tender would be recommending, specifically with terpene profiles. But to me, it even seems like it might be more advanced than your typical bud tender, just because what bud tender has access to thousands of different strains and all their different effects and all their terpenes just at their fingertips. But I'm curious. We were briefly talking about this before we started recording, but given that this is a new industry. You're pretty unique in your offering, but there are others who offer a similar sort of tool. And I'm curious what you think stands out with Pluggi and how you stand out from other competitors.
Yeah, 100%. So the key way we've sort of differentiated is in two parts. Is we provide free customization to all of our customers. So once the bot is on a dispensary website, it doesn't even have to be called Pluggi. They can name it whatever they want. They can use their brand logo, brand assets,
Oh yeah.
brand colors, and make it seamlessly fit their existing e-commerce experience. And we don't charge for that at all. So it's a completely free offering. We're essentially a free white labeled product for the dispensaries we partner with. And then to add a layer of customization for like our vertically integrated dispensary partners, we allow them to prioritize certain brands in our recommendations to ensure that the products we're recommending are aligned with their overall sales goals. So that if they have an in-house brand or a brand that they're partnered with, that brand is showing up over competing brands 100% of the time.
Huh.
The other way we've really differentiated is by taking ChatGPT and training it based on our partners' websites, menu data, frequently asked questions, really anything they'd like us to use as a data source, and then designing custom prompts that are compliant with each state's cannabis industry so that the bot can, in addition to providing product recommendations, answer customer support questions about the individual store, locations, store hours, accepted payment types, what kind of deals and promotions the dispensary has going on. So it's made it much more comprehensive than some of the competitors out there that are just those button-based questions leading to product recommendations. We obviously have that, and that's where we're driving the bulk of our ROI. But having automated customer support layered into our offering seamlessly has been an immense benefit in differentiating ourselves from competition.
Yeah, and I think I could maybe get you go down a little rabbit hole here too. When we were starting off, you were mentioning how one of the biggest problems dispensary face is abandoned carts, and so is there like some sort of feature in Pluggi that helps with this abandoned carts?
Yeah, so overall, the way we are tracking success is in seeing what percentage of Pluggi users that actually get to the point of receiving recommendations from us end up adding some of those recommendations to their carts and checking out. And what we've seen is 89% of users who receive recommendations from Pluggi end up purchasing at least one of those recommendations, which is significantly higher than non-Pluggi users as far as cart abandonment goes. And then from there, we're also tracking what is the average cart size of a customer who uses Pluggi versus a customer who doesn't. And we found that there's a 28.5% increase in average cart size compared to non-Pluggi users. Overall, it ends up being about a 20 times ROI based on our monthly subscription costs each month. So that's sort of the three key indicators we're using to track success and ROI based on cart abandonment, cart sizes, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah, no, really cool stuff. Really cool data points that you're using kind of to prove your points too. Just awesome. Going back to compliance, we're talking about compliance a little bit more. I'm curious, given the reputation that AI, you and I personally both love AI. We were talking about that before. However, as we both know, sometimes it does quote unquote hallucinate. And so I'm curious how Pluggi kind of fights this sort of problem and how it takes initiative to make sure that their recommendations are both compliant and real.
Yeah, 100%. So, our recommendation engine is not actually powered by ChatGPT. It's totally an in-house design that we've created to generate those recommendations based on the button-based questions that we're asking the customers. Where ChatGPT comes into play is just those open-ended customer support questions. And what we do to ensure that we're combating, GPT hallucination, any of those sort of issues, we're constantly looking at which questions are coming in from customers, which questions the AI is successfully responding to, and which ones they're not successfully responding to. And then we're also able to see where they're pulling that response from within the dispensary website or any data they provide us with for the knowledge base. So at the end of each month, for some of our clients, it's bi-weekly. We send a report on which questions we're able to successfully answer, which ones we're not able to successfully answer, and any issues that came up with answering customer support questions in that process. and then we could go in and manually customize the prompt to make sure that those issues don't happen moving forward. So it's really just a matter of continuous improvement, really, like taking into account what questions are being asked frequently, where the bot is seeing problems with answering questions because of a gap in the data it has access to or anything like that, and then filling those gaps in data and tweaking the prompt to improve those responses.
Yeah, really cool stuff. Do you ever find in some of those failed conversations that the customer just starts cussing out your chatbot?
I haven't seen that too much in ours. Not that I can remember. We're a pretty focused objective. Our product is all about answering questions about cannabis customer support and answering questions about particular dispensaries we've integrated with. So it's fairly simple. There have been a few instances where we see people getting frustrated with the AI because it's answering something wrong. But overall, the response has been pretty great.
Yeah, I love it. I'm one of those people, like when I'm talking about those AI chatbots that doesn't have the answer for me, I'll just write human over and over until it just gets the point I want to talk to a human. Totally. And we were briefly touching upon this. You were talking about the training material and how you're using previous successful conversations to kind of use as models for future successful conversations, I'm imagining. But I was wondering if you can kind of go deeper into that topic and kind of discuss some of the training material that you put in for this chatbot for Pluggi.
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary training materials are the dispensary website we're partnering with, their frequently asked questions, their e-commerce menu through our e-commerce integration, and then any COAs they have. So that helps a lot with very detailed question about like terpene content, things of that nature within their product catalog. So those are the three main pieces: is the dispensary website, their e-commerce, and their COA data from POS. Sometimes our customers have like a separate document they'd like us to train it on, a different PDF file with separate frequently asked questions. And if they have like a series of blogs on a separate website that they're using for SEO to redirect people to their core e-commerce website, we can absolutely train it based on that too. But primarily it's just that dispensary website, their POS, and their e-commerce.
Yeah, hell yeah, I love it. I'm kind of curious, being a startup, I would imagine you're kind of a bootstrap startup as we are over here at Green Dispensary Marketing. I'm curious on your end, what kind of marketing strategies have you been using to kind of get your name out there and get some sales? What's been working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Automated LinkedIn outreach has been huge for us since the beginning. So, just finding a list of people on LinkedIn that we can quickly connect with and introduce them first to who I am, why I'm in the cannabis industry. I posted it on LinkedIn, sort of about what we discussed early in this call, my experience with Tourette's and how it brought me to the cannabis industry. And as you know, the cannabis industry is made up of a lot of people who are very passionate about the plant and its impact on people's lives. So that story tends to really resonate with them and gets our foot in the door to show them that, I come by it honestly and earnestly. And I'm not just looking to make a quick buck off the industry. From there, we have automated messages going out that just show the case what Pluggi is, what it does, what kind of ROI we can drive for dispensaries, and then offers them a free trial. So that's sort of been the way we've gotten the vast majority of our leads and early customers. We also went to NECANN Boston very early on when we launched. I think it was a year after we launched our product. So it would have been March of 2023. We went for the first time. And I had a great experience out there, met with a bunch of Massachusetts dispensary operators and developed referral partnerships with companies like Rank Really High and Canna Planners. So, the Massachusetts market has been great to us, and that's all as a result of NECANN Boston. That's been huge for us for getting to connect with retailers in person, really learn about the problems they're facing and develop those relationships.
Yeah, no, shout out to Will Reed and Canna Planners too. They're one of our competitors. They're just really great people, just really, really great people. Glad that you're also connecting with them. Kind of going forward though, I would imagine you're trying to scale a little bit more, get a little bit more sales. Do you think there's anything that's kind of harming your progress? Would it be legalization of cannabis? Do you think it's regulations, or is there anything that's kind of harming you from getting your name out there, getting more sales? What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of improvements needed in cannabis relations or cannabis regulations in the US. Obviously, there's a ton of issues, but I think the one that impacts us most is when it comes to marketing. Due to the federal illegality of it, a lot of the traditional marketing channels like Meta and Google, you really can't get away with cannabis advertising. Unless you have a sophisticated marketing team that knows how to do it right without getting your account banned, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, good luck with
And
that.
as a yeah, and as a small startup, it's like you don't really have the resources for to build a compatible marketing campaign within these existing structures that don't really allow for cannabis advertising. So I think that's kind of the number one thing for us is we don't really have access to effective social media marketing that traditional industries would, due to it still being federally illegal.
Yeah, yeah, no, love the answer. Do you think that Pluggi is going to be part of the new e-commerce scene? It's just going to be something that's trending, and that it's going to be something that's just going to be an obvious choice for cannabis dispensaries operators, just to have a AI budtender AI chatbot like Pluggi. Do you think it's something that's going to be your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, even between us and like our top two or three competitors, I think there's only around 500 dispensaries signed up with a dispensary AI
Yeah.
agent type product, right? And there are, last I checked, over 14,000 dispensaries in the US. And that might be US and Canada, but I think that's just the US based on the Flow Hub report I saw last year. And so there's still significant market opportunity left. So we're really just focused on getting as many dispensaries as we can over the next few years. I'm not super interested in like raising a huge round and blitz scaling and taking a huge chunk of the market. I'm kind of just running this business because I wanted to break into the cannabis industry. I wanted to have a place here. And I like having full control over how the company operates and where we go from here without worrying about investor interests and things of that nature. So we're still growing, and I'm hoping to just get as many dispensaries onboarded over the next few years as possible, figure out where to go from there.
Yeah, just 500 of what, 12,000, 13,000. That's a lot of room for growth, 100%. Um, Kind of curious though, is a little bit of a twist of a question here. Imagine that you are a mom and pop dispensary, and you said you're from Massachusetts, right? Is that what you said?
I'm actually based out of California.
Okay.
Just as a result of going out to NECAN, we've developed a huge customer base in Massachusetts. We're in almost 30 Massachusetts dispensaries, so it's where we've seen a lot of success. But I'm based out of Sacramento, California.
All right, let's run with that. Let's go with California then. We got Catalyst, Beyond Hello, those sorts of companies. Imagine you're just like a mom and pop store that just opened up in Sacramento, and you have some big players next to you, and you're just trying to find a way to stand out. How does Pluggy help you compete with these big old MSOs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that for the mom and pop operators, it's significantly easier to bring on new technologies, right? There's less rounds of approvals you need to go through. You don't have to worry about like legal approvals, things like that. So, when the mom and pop shops, when we demo them, we're generally demoing the owner of the store. So we're able to very quickly get our tool implemented, whereas with those big chains, it could take months, if not years, to get a tool like this implemented. So I think the way that we help mom and pop shops differentiate is we're able to very quickly get integrated with their menus within 3 business days, develop a completely custom, essentially, dispensary AI agent for them that can handle pretty much all of the online customer support issues a customer faces, as well as providing online product recommendations that aren't just based on previous purchases, but based on what the customer is looking for right now. So it's able to address new customers that are looking for recommendations, not just recurring customers based on purchase history.
Yeah, I love it. Um, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. I love how you can white label it essentially for all these people, put their branding, put their colors. I love how it connects their COAs. It seems like it probably 99% of the time gives a really good response, up in the 90s, I would imagine. Is there anything else that we're missing? Any cool features that you kind of wanted to highlight, that, or maybe something you're working on going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, the two sort of main things we're working on are intelligent upselling is what we're calling it. So basically, when a customer adds something to their cart, we're able to say this is a product that is frequently added into carts alongside the product that you
Love
just
it.
added. So the to pop up with that recommendation without the customer having to answer all three of those preset questions. So we're calling that intelligent upselling. And then the next is a dispensary marketing agent that's able to do email, SMS outreach, and if you have if you have like a push notification system, like with sticky cards or something like that, we'll be able to automatically generate marketing outreach based on consumer preferences. So if they've used Pluggi in the past and they've said, "I like flower that's citrusy, it makes me feel creative," then we'll be able to take all that information, take a product that matches those specifications, and then draft a outreach script to automatically be sent out to that customer to generate net new sales.
Love it, Wyatt. You got me sold on it. I think this is a really cool product. I definitely wish you all the success in the world on this, marketing it, selling it. But I kind of go in a full circle here. We started off by asking about you, and I'd like to finish off by asking about you. I'm interested outside of the helping you out with Tourette's, which is really awesome, by the way. Can you tell me about your first experience with cannabis and what that was like?
Yeah, totally. So it's funny. I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. I was pretty young. I think I was like 14, and it was just some like kids at my school that were known as being like the stoner kids, and they for some reason just decided to take me and my friend with them that day after school to go hide out behind a tree and smoke some weed, and they were just really fucking cool people. And I think a lot of times when you're growing up, it's like uh people try to make you like scared of the stoner crowd, but it was one of the first times I really felt like accepted for my Tourette's. I told them I had Tourette's, and that I was interested to see how cannabis would react with it, and they just thought it was awesome. And before then, like, people were either weird about it or just straight up rude, you know what I mean? So it was really interesting to see this crowd of like quote unquote stoners that people were judgmental of be super accepting and nice about something that most people were not.
Yeah, no, I think stoners are low key very empathetic individuals. They're not judgmental. We all have our own problems. Everybody has their own problems, whether it be Tourette's
Yeah.
or in my case, I got scoliosis. So spine looks like that, and none of it's fun. Having problems.
No,
These days,
absolutely.
in 2025, you're not 14 years old anymore. What's your favorite cannabis product these days? How do you consume these days?
Yeah, I'm just smoking pre-rolls mostly, honestly. I've got a very small like dispensary that's down the street from my house, and they've got these 14-pack Blue Dream pre-roll joints that I love, and I just go for them consistently. It's Pacific Stone brand out here in California. So I just go there like once every week or two, grab a half ounce of pre-roll joints, and I'm set.
You said Blue Dreams. So you're an indica guy, right? That's an indica, right?
I think it's a hybrid, so I think it's a sativa dominant hybrid Blue Dream.
Gotcha. Cool stuff. Yeah, I love sativa too. It's the shit, man.
Yeah, me too.
Looking forward. Last question for you, Wyatt. Definitely respect your time. But one more question for you. Looking forward in the next 5 years, seeing what Wyatt Hahn sees in his crystal ball, knowing what you know. Where do you think we're going in the next 5 years for cannabis industry?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to think there's going to be federal legalization at some point, although with the current administration, that doesn't, I don't believe that's going to happen at the moment. So, I think it's really going to be about dispensaries figuring out a way to stay capital efficient, as well as cannabis tech providers, and really knowing your market, right? So I think a lot of times people are building these massive operations that are trying to be everything for everyone. And I think that in the cannabis industry, where you have these massive MSOs coming into play and really dominating the space in certain markets, for those individual players, especially those smaller operations, it's going to be really about hyper localization and being the best possible solution for a very specific customer base, if that makes sense. So
100%.
that's sort of what I'm seeing. I think there's going to be a shift towards hyper localization, especially for like delivery operations and smaller retailers. And then as far as tech goes, I'm expecting a lot of acquisition activity over the next 5 years in the cannabis tech side of things. I think Chris, who you interviewed at Blaze, he did a post on LinkedIn pretty recently saying that, you know, he foresees a lot of acquisitions taking place over the next few years in cannabis tech as well.
Yeah.
So
He'll be part of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a very on point response.
Yeah, love it, Wyatt. Well, definitely wish you all the best with Pluggi and you yourself personally. Thanks for coming on, sharing Pluggi with us. We'll definitely leave any sort of information on you and your tool, Pluggi, in the description below. But thanks so much. I wish you all the best, and let's circle back for some more collaborations in the future.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to reconnecting.
Hey, Sam here. Thanks again for listening to the GDM Podcast. So we do websites and SEO for cannabis brands and operators, and we do things a little bit differently here at GDM where we can promise results within weeks rather than months. And so if you're looking to sell more ounces, bongs, and other premium products, start selling some more weed, get in touch with us at Green Dispensary Marketing to learn more. Thanks again for listening and hope you have a great day.